Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we explore the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Milan Kohut, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced, the lessons learned, and the strategies fueling future growth. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by John Glennon, the founder and lead sales coach at Inside Sales Consulting, where he specializes in helping business owners, CEOs, and sales leaders scale their sales teams and increase revenue through tailored training and coaching programs. His approach emphasizes practical, results-driven strategies in sales hiring, onboarding, and performance optimization, avoiding generic sales clichés. Glennon's background as a seasoned sales leader and consultant equips him to deliver impactful growth solutions for ambitious businesses. With that being said, John, let me officially welcome you to Founders Future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind introduction.
It's great to have you, man. Let's dive into the conversation. What I love to do with all of my guests is take it back in time, right? Before you even had this company, what were you doing before? And then eventually, what was the motivation for starting the business?
How far back do you want to go? Because I'm a dinosaur. Do you want to go
How
to
far you want to go?
Do you want to go to in the beginning, or what would you
No,
like to do?
whatever comes to your mind, man. Whatever
I'm
you want
just
to share
joking.
with the audience.
Yeah, no. In preparation for today, I was thinking about that, and I think that I'm proud to say that I've been in sales my whole life, and I think that there's a stigma with sales where we've all been victims of bad salespeople, and so it doesn't conjure up necessarily a really positive thing, right? I just would really think about fondly. I remember when I was about 12 years old, my first sales job, and this is how old I am, I was selling newspaper subscriptions door to door. What I figured out was I didn't want to do the actual delivery, like operations look cumbersome. So I was like, I'll just go hunt and sell the subscriptions. That seems easier than lugging those papers around and actually delivering the product. So I'm proud to say that's where I cut my teeth when I was like 11 or 12 years old and did that and totally enjoyed it and was first introduced to the concept of that C word, right? Commission.
Yeah, I love it, man. Some of the guests come here and they start a journey by saying, yeah, when I was 5 years old, 10, 11, 12. Listen, I don't know what I was doing back when I was 11 years old, but it was definitely not selling anything. Good for you for starting early and
Uh-huh.
very young, but what a journey, man. And to spend your career in sales, obviously there is a ton that you really learned over the course of those years. And let's talk about where that journey eventually got you and what the business really looks like today. In this part of the podcast, what I'm trying to do is get the listeners as close as possible to, first of all, who it is exactly that you're looking to help. But then also, what does the core offer actually look like? What is the process? Tell us all about it.
Yeah. So yeah, from fast forward from there and just a career from inside sales to outside sales to territory manager to sales manager, VP sales, chief sales and marketing officer, basically up the corporate ladder would be the best way to put it. I think I just was naturally pretty good at sales, and that's not my ego talking. That's just the leaderboard. I was pretty good. And I thought I was probably better than I was. The reason I share that with you is like I really never was formally invested in as a sales professional until 1996. So once again, I'm a dinosaur, but if you can remember the mid 90s, back then you still got shipped off to do some sales training. And this was with a company that I was working for out of the United States. And so we went to this boot camp in Denver, and I was just blown away that there was such a thing. Like I had taken some Carnegie stuff and a couple of one-day things, but this was a completely new animal. And it was my first introduction with some of your listeners may have heard of the Sandler Sell or Sandler training system. That was my first baptism into somebody investing in me and really amping my game up to be a professional salesperson. From there, basically, I took a lot of the teachings and deployed those in my corporate life and had nothing but a lot of fun and a lot of success along the way. Fast forward to 2008, and just right before the Great Recession started, I decided to quit my corporate job and open up an actual Sandler training franchisee. So I was a Sandler trainer for 16 years in the great, beautiful province of British Columbia, Canada. 3 years ago, I decided to give up the franchise rights, and essentially I founded my own independent practice, which is under the banner of Insight Sales Consulting. As much as I admired a lot of the Sandler teachings and what they brought to the table, there's a lot of other great leaders and mentors and people I've followed over the years. And I just started to think about something that my clients wanted. And what they really said to me, John, was like, hey, can you help us in the lane of revenue? If you can figure out how to hire, train, and coach my people, that's absolutely what we want from you. So that's the story of how I've got to Insight Sales Consulting over the past 3 years.
Gotcha. Now, when it comes to making those decisions in terms of who you're going to end up working with and who you're not going to work with, what are those specifications that you're actually looking for? There's many different industries that use sales teams, salespeople. So what is your thought process on that?
Yeah, basically, it's a great question. And I would really say that, is the leadership team committed to being okay saying the yes word? A lot of companies say that they're sales driven, but they don't act and behave like it. In fact, there could be a two-class system within the organization, sometimes even worse. That dreaded sales department, they're creating all these nightmares, and there's a lot of cultural rub. Like they say they all get along. They got foosball tables and they're axe throwing on the Fridays, and they're all hipsters drinking pints of microbrews. But actually, culturally, it's just not aligned. So I say, if you're going to get serious about sales, let's act and behave like we are, and can make the commitment to being a sales-driven organization. Really requires a change culturally, right? Where everybody is basically saying revenue, profitable revenue is our driving force here. And that's not for everybody. Absolutely not. Not for everybody.
Absolutely. So definitely alignment is one of the biggest things that you're looking for.
100%. It's got to be that from the top down, the bottom up. I like to say, really, there's only two things in life. You're either selling or you're supporting somebody that sells.
Very true. Yeah, absolutely. Now, John, let's bring the listeners a little bit closer to what the actual offer looks like and what really the process is, right? So obviously there are several stages to what you do with all of your clients. So we want to know things like what is the average duration of you working with a client, with a company, with those sales teams? What is the frequency of really working with you, the cadence? Just tell us everything about it.
Yeah, great stuff. It really, I know as every good lawyer says, it all depends. Okay. I'm really about discovery. I'm very much about what is it that the client actually needs. Sometimes it's not as bad as they think, and they just need some tune-ups with basically the team or themselves sometimes. Quite frankly, there's a lot of owners or sales managers that are, they're more comfortable with being liked than they are to succeed. So if you want to be liked more than succeed, you're going to spend all day walking around being liked, and you're not going to hold people accountable. That's just one example of where maybe they just need me to come in and help train and coach them on how to set metrics and KPIs, and that'd just be a short-term duration type thing. So I'm really much about the analyzation first, then write the prescription. However, some clients, they want me to do all the hiring. I always say, you got the right people in the right seats, and it's like up to 50% of people should not be in sales, right? They shouldn't be. Yet it's this default profession. When you suck at everything else, you can get a sales job. I just think that's horrible. So sometimes I'm hiring the salesperson, I'm screening them, then moving into the training, and then moving into the coaching aspect, right? So average duration with the client, I'm proud to say, maybe it's low for some people, but it's about 4 years typically on average. I've got clients that I'm working on my 12th, 14th year. We just keep scaling them and having fun acquiring other companies or expanding into new markets. Like we just grow differently. It's a different assignment with more of my mature. And then I got people, hey, they come in for 3 months, 6 months, help them out, and away they go. It's not something where I'm forcing it upon them. I just want to make sure we map out what's going to get them revenue that's profitable. That's my mission and vision, is to deliver that to my clients.
That's very true. I feel you having clients from 4 to 12 years, if that's not a sign that you're doing something right, I don't really know what is. But at the same time, obviously you can leverage on the amount of experience that you've collected over the years. So even when it comes to those clients who are really short terms, it's a question of a couple of months, there is quite a big transformation that you can actually deliver to somebody like that as well. So that's definitely a beautiful thing. Now, in terms of getting in front of those right people and those companies, obviously having a good client acquisition system in place is a big part of succeeding in your industry. So I want to talk about the backend side of the business and more specifically, what are you doing with your marketing or maybe from lead generation standpoint to make all of that possible?
Yeah, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't teach grow where you're planted in introductions and referrals. So I'm proud to say that, and I'm not here to boast, and I hope it doesn't come across the wrong way, but I've got 149 LinkedIn recommendations that are written by students and people that I've worked with, and hundreds of testimonials. So I'm a big believer, if you deliver a good service and a product, you should be positioning your clients to be comfortable to introduce and refer you to other people like them. Hey, listen, that wasn't the case when I started in sales. And certainly I've made a lot of cold calls and been rejected and all that good stuff. But I just would say my primary obsession, and one that I teach with my clients, is to really deliver on exceptional outcomes for your clients and then be in a position to get introductions and referrals. It's not to say I don't do lead gen and I don't do marketing, but the majority of my business comes from active or passive introductions and referrals.
Absolutely. You need to have the ability to really leverage on the network that you created over the years. So it's beautiful to hear. But at the same time, when we talk about word of mouth and referrals as a source, obviously we're not going to doubt that this is possibly the best kind of lead that you could ever get, right? It's quite easy to close somebody if they're coming from a referral. But at the same time, there's a lot of frustration when it comes to the inconsistency of those leads, right? You can have a good month, you can have a strain of bad months. It happens to everybody. In order to have something more predictable and scalable in place, what are those additional actions that you're taking on the marketing side? And perhaps have you ever tried dabbling into paid advertisement to deal with this situation, or what is your perspective on that?
Oh yeah, no, that's good. No, but just to come back to introduction referrals, the point I would want to really drive home though is if you're not positioning that, let's pretend we had a brand new piece of business and you came on board with me. That's the time to talk about introductions and referrals. That's the time to bring up to the client that, are you going to be comfortable if I exceed your expectations? Are you going to be comfortable providing introductions and referrals for me? Okay. So some of your listeners are going to say, wow, that just seems, no, that's doing it at the front end. So if I am coming back to check on you weekly, monthly, quarterly, and you're saying really good things about how you've helped your client, you already positioned that they would be comfortable giving you introduction and referral. So what I find when I teach people, they wait till the end. And then the customer is like really not actually happy with you, but they say things like, I'll keep you in mind if I can think of somebody. Those are code words that your product or service suck because they don't want to give you a name. So what I say to people, get obsessed with outcomes and expectations, doing a good job. So when you come back to them and you say, hey, it's been a month since we were working together, how's it going? Oh my gosh, this has been the greatest thing. Now they're ready to give you that name. But putting the pressure on the back end of that, how's everything going? Are you happy? Well, people will say, yeah, I am, but they really aren't because they don't want to break your heart. And it wasn't what they bought or expected. So that's just my rant on that. In terms of to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is where my clientele hangs out. I outsource my marketing to somebody that's way smarter with the placement of those ads and the rotations. So white papers, call to action, certainly using the LinkedIn because that's where the business to business professionals hang out. And that's where I will get a lot of my lead gen is through LinkedIn.
Gotcha. Now, when it comes to taking all of those activities on the marketing front, but also the sales communication with all of those leads coming into the system. What I'm curious about is have you already built out your teams to help you out with that? Or would you say that you're taking care of the majority of those tasks yourself and only for the marketing side of things you hire somebody externally? What is that structure?
So that's all been automated in through our CRM. Essentially, if the leads come in, then they go into a sequence and a drip. And then basically that's been automated and it's outsourced to people that have figured that out for me. However, I am still a big believer in POT, right? Which is pick up the telephone. So at some point, we've got to engage with that prospect and POT, pick up the telephone. I don't have anybody that's ever bought my services through an email. So typically, I'm going to have to talk to them at some point. So by the time the sequence has typically gone out, they know who I am. They've seen some communication, and then it's typically just calling in behind that. But that I will personally endeavor to make those calls.
Gotcha. So you're the one making those calls. You haven't really hired some sales folks for yourself.
I have in the past, but I found that people are buying me. So if that call doesn't go exceptionally well into the standard that I would want to bring to the table, I just find that people are buying me. That conversation is just going to be natural, and I don't know where we're going to end up. So I would rather take the time and make that a priority, because if I'm doing the lead gen, why wouldn't I want to have that conversation? Because that business owner, to that VP sales, to invest that time and make the dial myself.
Sure. Yeah. John, when you think about the future of the company, more specifically the short-term goal, so let's say the next 6 to 12 months, what would you say are going to be the biggest targets, goals, revenue, milestones that you have set for yourself?
Yeah, I'm sunset. Like I told you, I'm a dinosaur now. I'm sunset. I'm not sunrise. I have a lot of admiration and respect for younger people and people starting out that are trying to hit a lot of those metrics and goals. The way I do it these days is I basically do it based on number of clients I want to serve or the number of students that I wish to have in my roster. And if I can achieve those each and every year, I just, essentially have a great life. And that's really what I'm seeking at this point in my lifespan. It's not to say that I'm not growing, I'm just growing differently, right? I'm trying to live a little bit more holistic, and I don't need to chase the revenue like I had to back in the day. It's not to say that I'm settling or being passive. It's just my kids are grown, they've got through university, just had a different cycle in my life. I'm basically chasing number of engagements, a number of students that fit into my life these days. So I'm still actively pursuing those, still chasing my introductions and referrals. If I basically have about 40 to 50 clients that I'm working with and or up to 100 students, that's typically where I want to be these days. And that's the targets for 2026.
Which I would assume it's quite easy for you to actually hit that goal because of the fact that you mentioned the majority of your clients are actually staying with you long term. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, like any business, I'll have attrition. I have fallout at the back end. Not everybody stays. So yeah, you got to keep it to hit that threshold. There still has to be an active element of LinkedIn ads and picking up the telephone and speaking events, whatever it is that I've got to go and attend or do to keep the funnel healthy to hit those numbers.
Sure. Now, John, when it comes to really keeping the business at this stage and really growing, but not really chasing anything, so maybe like more of a sustainable growth, when you think about that, out of everything, what could become like one of the biggest challenges of making that happen and continuing in that?
You mean keeping it profitably running as it is today? What do I see as a challenge? Yeah, for me personally, it's continuing to find the talent that my clients need. Okay. What I mean by that, if I can't continue to find, train, and coach great sales talent, I have a problem, right? Because let's face it, all the great salespeople are already working. So finding people that are passionate about sales, want to be in sales, enjoy the freedom, enjoy the commission, the bonus. Personally, that's always been the struggle. It just seems to be getting worse as time goes on. I don't know what's happening, but I think maybe a lot of folks they just don't want to be doing it, or they
Mhm.
just put in the grit and the perseverance that you need to. So that's, I would say, talent and finding it is what is the thing that keeps me up at night.
Yeah. What is the strategy that you have for dealing with something like that? What is your perspective on it?
It's always having conversations with as many young people to find out what their perceptions are of it. Let's say it's a local college or it's a mentoring group, or in fact, I tell my clients, how are you talking about salespeople in front of your kids? Right. So I think we have to take some ownership about the fact that founders and owners, what's their beliefs and attitudes around sales and salespeople, and to return some of the nobility to it. That it doesn't have to be a slimy, greasy thing. But if that's what the younger generation thinks of it, we got to slowly change that. Or actually, not slowly, probably quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, John, before I let you go, I want to ask you one of my favorite questions ever. Obviously, you've been in business for many years now. So if you could travel back in time, speak to your younger self, maybe at the very beginning of your journey as an entrepreneur, what would be the best piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Wow,
Put you on a spot here.
that's great. That's awesome. Patience, patience. I think be patient, but be right with the patience. I would say is something I would go back and say, slow this down to speed it up. This too shall pass. Just be patient. So trust the process. I think back in the younger days, probably running and gunning, maybe too impulsive decisions, and probably rubbed some people, bad things, whatever, right? And if I look back, probably wasn't required in many of those cases. It's just calmed down, took a breath, and was a little bit more patient.
I love it, man. Thank you for sharing that. Now, John, this wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. So I just want to say thank you for taking this time today, sharing this story with me and the entire audience. And if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, reach out, maybe even work with you one day, what is the best way to go about that?
Yeah, just either on LinkedIn or it's Insight Sales Consulting is the best place to reach me. The website is or LinkedIn is the two primary places.
Beautiful. Inside Sales Consulting, everybody. Love it. Now, to our listeners, if today's conversation inspired you as well, make sure to subscribe to Founders Future on your favorite platform. And also, if you're a business owner, more specifically a consultant or coach, or you have an agency and you're trying to scale the business and really enhance both your marketing and sales efforts, also visit closures.io, get in touch with our team, and discover how exactly we scaled our company from zero to over 30 million per year in less than 3 years. Until then, keep on crushing it, and I'll see you on the next one.